Get off that porch right now, both of you matching intruders, and keep your hands where I can see them.
This is our family home, Sergeant, and you can verify that right now.
I don't take orders from trespassers, so both of you come down immediately.
Stop this now, Sergeant, before you make a mistake that follows you for the rest of your career.
Keep challenging me, and I'll have all 4 officers drag you down.
The yard went silent as the 4 officers tightened around the porch, and Pike moved closer to the twins. Maya and Naomi stayed shoulder to shoulder, calm, refusing to give any of them the reaction they wanted. What Sergeant Randall Pike and the other 3 officers didn't know was that the twins they had surrounded were both FBI special agents. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Carter family porch as Maya and Naomi climbed the wooden steps, their arms full of repair supplies from the hardware store. Paint cans clinked softly in Maya's grip. Naomi carried a bag of brushes and sandpaper in one hand, house keys jingling in the other. "Finally got everything on Dad's list," Maya said, setting down the paint beside the front door. Naomi smiled. "He would have loved seeing us fix up his—" "Excuse me!" Both women turned. 4 white police officers stood at the bottom of their porch steps, hands resting on their duty belts. The lead officer, a thick-set man with graying temples and cold blue eyes, stepped forward. "Sergeant Randall Pike, City Police. We received a call about suspicious activity at this address." Maya straightened. "Suspicious activity?" "2 women breaking into an empty house," Pike said. His voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. "Neighbors saw you forcing the door." Naomi held up her keys, the metal catching the sunlight. "We didn't force anything. This is our house." Pike's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Your house?" "Right." He gestured to the other officers. "Fan out. Don't let them get back inside." The 3 officers spread across the yard. The youngest, a lean man with nervous eyes, positioned himself near the porch railing. A stocky officer with aggressive posture moved toward the driveway. The 3rd, older and more cautious, stayed near the sidewalk. "Sir, they have keys," the young officer said. "Maybe we should—" "Cole, shut your mouth," Pike snapped. "Keys don't prove ownership. Burglars carry tools." Maya felt heat rise in her chest. "Burglars? We grew up in this house. Our family has owned this property for almost 30 years. "Prove it," Pike demanded. Naomi gestured toward the open front door. "The deed is inside. So are utility records, tax documents, family photos going back decades. I can show you everything. Nobody goes inside until I say so." Pike's voice hardened. "You 2 are coming down here, now." "Why?" Maya asked. "We're standing on our own porch." Pike's jaw tightened. "Because I'm ordering you to. One at a time, hands visible." Cole shifted uncomfortably. "Sergeant, they both have credential wallets. I can see the clips beneath their jackets." "I told you to shut up, Cole." Pike never took his eyes off the twins. Those could be anything. Fake IDs, stolen wallets, counterfeit badges. Criminals carry props. The stocky officer, Shaw, grinned. "Want me to go up and get them, Sergeant?" "Not yet, Shaw." Pike studied the twins with predatory patience. "I'm giving them one chance to cooperate." Naomi's hand moved slowly toward her jacket. Pike's entire body tensed. "Easy there. Keep those hands where I can see them." "I'm reaching for my phone," Naomi said calmly, "to call our lawyer." "No calls, no movement. You come down here first. Then we talk." Maya stepped forward. "Why are you treating homeowners like criminals? Would you be doing this to 2 white women standing on their own porch?" Pike's face flushed red. The question hit exactly where Maya intended. "Don't make this about race. This is about suspicious behavior and failure to comply with lawful orders." "Lawful orders?" Naomi's voice stayed level, but her eyes flashed with anger. "You have no warrant, no probable cause, no authority to order us off our own property." Behind Pike, the older officer, Mercer, looked increasingly uncomfortable. Shaw cracked his knuckles. Cole kept glancing at the credential wallets. Pike raised his voice. I have authority to investigate reported crimes. Breaking and entering is a felony. If you don't cooperate, you'll be detained and searched. Searched for what? Maya demanded. Whatever you stole from inside. We didn't steal anything. We live here. Says you. Pike gestured to Shaw and Mercer. Move closer. If they run, stop them. The officers closed ranks. Naomi's hand brushed against a small device mounted beside the front door. The porch security camera's microphone activated with a barely audible click. Pike placed one boot on the first wooden step. The boards creaked under his weight. Last warning, he said, his voice carrying the promise of violence. You can come down willingly, or all four of us will bring you down. Your choice. Pike's boot hit the second step with deliberate force. The wood groaned under his weight as he climbed higher, his eyes locked on Maya's face with predatory focus. I said come down here, he growled, reaching the third step. Now. Shaw circled toward Naomi's side of the porch, his thick frame moving with aggressive purpose. Mercer positioned himself across the walkway, cutting off any escape route to the driveway. The three men formed a triangle of intimidation around the bottom of the porch. Maya raised her voice, clear and commanding. Keep your hands visible, all of you. Pike laughed, a harsh sound that echoed across the yard. You giving orders now? Real cute. You are standing on private property without consent, Maya continued, her tone steady despite the tension crackling through the air. You have no warrant, no probable cause, and no lawful authority to detain us. Listen to her, Pike said to his officers, mockery dripping from every word. Think she's a lawyer now. Maybe she watched some TV shows in county lockup. Shaw snickered. Cole remained silent, his nervous eyes darting between the twins and his sergeant. Pike climbed another step, close enough now that Maya could smell the coffee on his breath. You want to know about authority? Here's your authority. He reached for Maya's wrist with practiced confidence, the same grab he had used on dozens of suspects over the years. His thick fingers closed around her arm. Maya moved. Her body pivoted with fluid precision, trained reflexes taking over. She twisted her wrist in a sharp, counterclockwise motion, breaking Pike's grip with textbook defensive tactics. His momentum carried him forward as she stepped aside. Pike stumbled, his balance gone, and grabbed desperately for the porch railing to keep from falling. The railing shuddered under his weight as he caught himself, breathing hard. Shaw's face contorted with rage. She assaulted him. She attacked a police officer. He charged up the steps, his heavy boots pounding against the wood. Naomi moved between them like a wall, her hands raised but not threatening. Stop, she commanded, her voice cutting through Shaw's fury. Everyone stop right now. Shaw pulled up short, inches from Naomi's position. Pike straightened against the railing, his face burning with humiliation. 3 of his officers had just watched a suspect break his hold without breaking a sweat. You want to resist arrest? Pike snarled, his authority cracking like thin ice. You want to assault police officers? Fine. You just made this a felony. Maya's eyes blazed. I defended myself against unlawful contact. You grabbed me without cause. Unlawful contact? Pike's voice rose to a shout. I'm conducting an investigation. You attacked me. I removed your hand from my person, Maya said coldly. Nothing more. Shaw jabbed a finger toward her. Bull! You threw him down those steps. I did not strike anyone. I did not use force. I simply moved away from unwanted contact. Pike pushed away from the railing, his composure shattered. The calm confidence he had projected moments earlier was gone, replaced by raw anger and wounded pride. That's assault on a police officer, he declared, his voice shaking with fury. Both of you are under arrest. Maya and Naomi looked at each other. A single glance passed between the twins, silent communication that had developed over 36 years of shared experiences. Then, with movements so synchronized they might have been choreographed, both women reached inside their jackets. Pike tensed. Shaw's hand dropped toward his weapon. Mercer stepped forward. The twins pulled their hands free in perfect unison. Gold federal badges caught the afternoon sunlight like mirrors. Special Agent Maya Carter, FBI. Special Agent Naomi Carter, FBI. The credentials hung in the air between them, official and undeniable. The FBI eagles gleamed against black leather cases. Identification photos matched the faces staring back at the officers. Cole immediately stepped backward, his hands rising away from his belt. His face went pale as the implications hit him. Shaw's mouth fell open. Mercer froze in place. Pike stared at the badges for 3 long seconds. Then his expression hardened into something uglier than before. "Nice try," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Real convincing props. Where'd you buy them? Internet? Some costume shop?" Maya's voice stayed level. "Call the FBI field office. Verify our credentials." "Could be stolen," Pike continued, ignoring her completely. "Could be fake. Could be anything. Criminals carry all kinds of fake identification." Naomi pulled out her phone, fingers moving across the screen. FBI Washington Field Office. Area code 202. Phone number 278-2000. Ask for Agent Patricia Williams, Assistant Special Agent in charge. She'll verify our employment status immediately. Pike's jaw worked like he was chewing something bitter. "I'm not calling anyone based on your word. You're both under detention until we verify who you really are." "Then make the verification call," Maya said. Pike reached for his radio instead. His thumb pressed the transmit button with deliberate force. "Dispatch, this is Sergeant Pike. I need Lieutenant Keller at my location immediately. Priority response." Naomi's eyebrows rose. "You're calling your lieutenant instead of the FBI field office?" Pike clipped the radio back to his belt, satisfaction creeping across his face. "Lieutenant Keller handles all verification procedures for this precinct. He'll know what to do with fake federal credentials." Pike paced beside his patrol car, the phone pressed tight against his ear. His voice carried across the yard in harsh whispers, but the words were lost in the distance. The other 3 officers maintained their positions around the porch, creating a loose perimeter that kept the twins isolated. Cole shifted uncomfortably, his eyes moving between the FBI badges still visible in the twins' hands, and Pike's agitated phone conversation. The afternoon sun beat down on his uniform, sweat gathering under his collar despite the cool October air. "Sergeant," Cole called out, his voice tentative, "maybe we should verify through dispatch. Standard procedure for federal credentials is—" Pike's head snapped toward him, the phone still against his ear. His free hand slashed through the air in a cutting gesture that silenced Cole immediately. Pike's eyes held a warning that needed no words. Speak again and face consequences. Cole's mouth closed with an almost audible click. He looked down at his boots, jaw working silently. Shaw moved closer to the porch steps, his phone appearing in his hands. The camera lens focused on Maya's opened credential case. "Hey!" Maya pulled the badge back against her chest. "What do you think you're doing?" Shaw grinned without humor. "Documenting evidence. These fake badges are going to look real nice in the police report." He raised the phone again, trying to get a clear shot of Naomi's credentials. Naomi turned her body, shielding the identification from his camera. "Those are official federal documents," she said firmly. "You don't have authorization to photograph them." Shaw's grin widened. "I got authorization to photograph anything relevant to my investigation, and these fake badges are real relevant." Mercer watched the exchange with growing unease, his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes kept darting toward Pike, then back to the twins, like he was watching a tennis match where he couldn't predict the winner. The confident swagger he had shown earlier was fading, replaced by the careful posture of someone who sensed trouble coming. Naomi's voice cut through the tension with calm authority. "Officer Shaw, I want to make something crystal clear. Every word being spoken right now is being recorded by multiple cameras mounted on this house." Shaw's phone lowered slightly. What cameras? Naomi gestured toward the small black devices positioned under the eaves of the porch roof. Security system, motion-activated high-definition video and audio. Everything that's happened in this yard for the last 15 minutes is being permanently stored. Pike ended his phone call and strode back toward the porch, his face set in hard lines. He had heard Naomi's warning about the cameras. "Shaw!" Pike barked. "Those cameras might contain evidence of the burglary. Locate the recording system inside the house." Shaw's eyes lit up with understanding. He moved toward the front door with purpose. Maya stepped directly into the doorway, her body filling the frame. "You're not entering this house." "I got reasonable suspicion that recording equipment inside contains evidence of criminal activity," Pike declared. "You have no warrant. You have no exigent circumstances. You have no legal authority to enter this property." Pike's face darkened. "I got plenty of authority, lady. This is a criminal investigation." "This is a fishing expedition," Maya shot back. "And entering that house without a warrant will create a federal problem far larger than the one you already have." The sound of tires on pavement interrupted the standoff. An unmarked dark sedan pulled up behind the patrol cars, its engine ticking as it cooled. The driver's door opened, and a tall man in his late 50s emerged. His gray hair was perfectly combed, his white shirt crisp despite the heat. Lieutenant's bars gleamed on his collar. Warren Keller surveyed the scene with calculating eyes that missed nothing. The twins on the porch, his officers arranged below them, Pike's rigid posture that screamed trouble. He walked toward the house with measured steps, his polished shoes quiet against the concrete. His gaze fixed on the FBI credentials in the twins' hands. Recognition flashed across his features immediately. These weren't fake badges or clever props. They were genuine federal identification, and Keller knew it. Pike moved to intercept him. "Lieutenant, these women claim to be FBI agents, but I think—" Keller held up one hand, silencing Pike mid-sentence. He stepped closer to the porch, his expression neutral but alert. "Special Agents Carter," he said formally. "I'm Lieutenant Warren Keller, Precinct Commander." Maya nodded. "Lieutenant?" Keller's eyes moved between the twins and the house behind them. "We received a call about suspicious activity at this address. My officers responded appropriately to investigate. Now, I need to verify that you have legitimate authority to be on this property." Naomi's eyebrows rose. "We live here. I'll need proof of that claim." Naomi pulled out her phone again, fingers swiping across the screen. She turned the device toward Keller, showing a digital document with official seals and signatures. "Property deed," she said calmly. "Recorded with the county. Current mortgage holder First National Bank. Property taxes paid through December." Keller leaned forward, studying the screen. The deed clearly listed the Carter family as property owners, with the address matching exactly. The documentation was thorough and legitimate. Pike shifted nervously beside his lieutenant. That could be forged, too. Digital documents are easy to fake. Keller straightened, his decision already made. "The ownership documentation appears to be in order," he announced. "However, given the nature of the initial call and the circumstances of this encounter, I'm declaring this property a temporary investigative scene." Maya's voice sharpened. "On what grounds?" "Public safety and evidence preservation," Keller replied smoothly. "Everyone will remain exactly where they are until this investigation is completed to my satisfaction." Early evening shadows stretched across the Carter property as the sun dipped lower in the sky. The confrontation had dragged on for over an hour, with Maya and Naomi still positioned on their porch, while 5 officers controlled the front yard below them. The air had grown thick with humidity and tension. Lieutenant Keller paced slowly between his men, his sharp eyes studying every detail of the house and property. He moved with the deliberate confidence of someone accustomed to reshaping situations to fit his needs. "I've been thinking about this burglary call," Keller announced suddenly. His voice carried across the yard with practiced authority. The neighbor who reported suspicious activity might have been intimidated into changing their story. Maya's jaw tightened. What are you talking about? Sometimes people who witness crimes get scared when the suspects return to the scene, Keller continued smoothly. They might feel pressured to claim nothing happened. That would explain why you're so confident about being here. Naomi's voice remained level despite the obvious absurdity. You think we intimidated someone into letting us burglarize our own house? I think witness intimidation is a serious federal crime, Keller replied, which means I have additional justification for maintaining this investigative scene until we can interview the caller properly. Pike had been growing more agitated during Keller's performance. His eyes kept darting toward the side of the house where a small window revealed electronic equipment inside. Through the glass, the red and blue lights of the security system's central hub were clearly visible. Pike caught Shaw's attention with a subtle head nod toward the window. Shaw understood immediately. The sergeant wanted him to check out the recording equipment. Shaw began moving casually along the side of the porch, his path designed to look random. Pike gave him another small signal, this one pointing directly at the window. Naomi tracked Shaw's movement with peripheral vision while keeping her primary focus on Keller. Lieutenant, are you planning to interview this mysterious caller tonight? Because otherwise, your investigative scene justification doesn't hold legal water. Shaw reached the porch steps and started climbing toward the side window, his movements quick and purposeful now that he was committed. Maya turned sharply and stepped directly into Shaw's path. Where do you think you're going? Shaw stopped on the third step, one hand already reaching toward his radio. Just checking the perimeter for officer safety. You're approaching a window of a private residence without a warrant, Maya stated flatly. Back down those steps right now. Shaw's face flushed red. Don't tell me how to do my job, lady. I got reasonable suspicion that... Pike suddenly exploded into motion. While everyone's attention focused on Shaw and Maya, he lunged forward and upward, his arm stretching toward Naomi's phone. Enough of this recording nonsense, Pike snarled as he grabbed for the device. Naomi saw him coming. Her FBI training kicked in automatically. As Pike's hand reached for her phone, she caught his wrist and redirected his forward momentum. Pike's own aggressive lunge carried him past her toward the wooden porch post. Naomi turned his arm smoothly, using his weight against him. Pike slammed sideways into the post with a solid thud, his shoulder pinned against the painted wood. Naomi held him there for exactly 2 seconds, long enough to control the threat, not long enough to constitute excessive force. Stop! Everyone stop right now! Cole shouted from the bottom of the steps. His voice cracked with stress and authority combined. Shaw tried to rush up the remaining steps to help Pike, but Mercer grabbed his arm and pulled him backward. Shaw, don't! Mercer ordered. This is already bad enough. Naomi immediately released Pike and stepped back, her hands visible and open. Pike stumbled away from the post, his face scarlet with rage and humiliation. You just put hands on a police sergeant, Pike roared, his voice echoing across the neighborhood. You think your federal badges protect you from assaulting an officer? You're going to regret that mistake for the rest of your careers. Maya moved closer to her sister, her voice quiet but carrying clearly. The cameras caught everything, Naomi. Every second of it. Night had settled completely over the Carter property, transforming the confrontation from an afternoon incident into something that felt deliberate and endless. The porch lights cast harsh shadows across the 5 officers still positioned in the front yard, their faces angular and severe in the artificial glow. Pike pressed his hand against his shoulder where it had struck the porch post, his breathing still heavy with rage. The humiliation of being controlled so easily by Naomi had turned his face a mottled red that showed clearly even in the dim lighting. Keller studied the scene with calculating eyes. The lieutenant understood that every additional minute they remained without legitimate grounds was creating more evidence of harassment. But Pike's wounded pride made retreat difficult. Maya stepped forward on the porch, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had reached her limit. "Lieutenant Keller, I'm going to contact my federal supervisors directly if you don't clear this scene immediately. You have no warrant, no probable cause, and no lawful justification for keeping officers on our property." She pulled her phone from her jacket and held it visibly. "I can have the FBI duty officer on the line in 30 seconds. Would you like to explain to Federal Command why local police have been harassing 2 agents at their family home for the past 2 hours? Keller's jaw tightened. The threat was real, and he knew it. Federal agents had direct lines to supervisors who could make his life extremely complicated with a single phone call. "Sergeant Pike," Keller called out sharply, "we're withdrawing from the scene. Get your men back to the vehicles." Pike's eyes flashed with fury. "Lieutenant, we haven't finished investigating." "We're finished," Keller interrupted coldly. "Move your officers now." Pike turned toward his men, his anger looking for any available target. His gaze settled on Cole, who still stood at the bottom of the porch steps with his body camera clearly visible and recording. "Cole," Pike barked, "shut off that camera and get back to your unit." Cole looked up at Pike, then toward the porch where Maya and Naomi watched silently. Something shifted in his young face, a decision being made in real time. "No, Sergeant," Cole said quietly. The word hung in the night air like a challenge. Pike stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that everyone could still hear. "What did you just say to me, officer?" Cole straightened his shoulders. "I said no, sir. The camera stays on. Department policy requires body cameras to remain active during all citizen contacts until the encounter is completely terminated." "I'm ordering you to shut it off," Pike hissed. "And I'm respectfully declining that order because it violates established procedure," Cole replied. His voice grew stronger with each word. "The camera documents everything that happens here tonight. That protects everyone involved." Shaw and Mercer exchanged uncomfortable glances. They had both heard Pike's whispered camera commands during previous stops, but none of them had ever refused before. Cole was crossing a line that could not be uncrossed. Keller's face went rigid with controlled fury. "Officer Cole, return to your vehicle immediately. Officer Shaw, you too. Mercer, move the perimeter back to the street." The dismissal was sharp and final. Keller understood that Cole's public refusal had created a witness they could not intimidate or control. The young officer had chosen his side, and it was not Pike's. Shaw shot one last hostile look toward the porch before trudging toward his cruiser. Mercer followed without comment, his shoulders tense with stress. Pike remained fixed in place for several more seconds, staring up at Maya with unconcealed hatred. Then he spun on his heel and stalked toward his vehicle without another word. Cole was the last to leave. He looked up at the twins and gave a small nod of acknowledgement before walking slowly toward his patrol car. Maya and Naomi remained on the porch until all 4 vehicles had pulled away from the curb, their red taillights disappearing around the corner. Only then did they step backward toward their front door. Naomi moved just inside the doorway, still visible from the porch, but with access to the security system's main control panel. She pulled out her phone and checked the encrypted cloud storage application. "Everything uploaded automatically," she announced with quiet satisfaction. "Every single minute, from the moment they arrived until just now. The entire encounter is stored on servers they can't touch or manipulate." Maya joined her sister in the doorway, her mind already working through the implications. "Dad installed those cameras after people kept vandalizing our fence and mailbox, remember? He said he was tired of being unable to prove what really happened on his own property. I upgraded the system to cloud storage after he died," Naomi replied. "I thought it would help protect the house while we were both traveling for work. I never imagined we'd need it to protect ourselves from the police." Maya pulled her phone back out and scrolled through recent case files. Pike's name had been nagging at her memory throughout the confrontation, and now she knew why. "Naomi, listen to this," Maya said, reading from her screen. 3 separate civil rights complaints filed in the past 6 months, all involving black homeowners in this precinct, all accused of burglarizing their own houses, all describing officers who refused to verify identification properly and disabled body cameras during the encounters. Naomi looked up from the security system. Same pattern? Exactly the same pattern, Maya confirmed. White neighbors call in suspicious activity. Pike's unit responds. Homeowners get surrounded on their own property and treated like criminals even after showing identification. Reports get filed claiming the residents were aggressive or threatening. The sisters stood in their doorway, the weight of realization settling over them like a heavy blanket. This wasn't a misunderstanding, Maya said quietly, as Pike's cruiser disappeared completely from view. We just became witnesses inside our own federal case. Maya woke before dawn, her body still tense from the confrontation. She found Naomi already awake in the kitchen, laptop open, methodically organizing digital files. "How long have you been up?" Maya asked, pouring coffee from the pot her sister had already made. "Since 4, Naomi replied without looking away from her screen. "I've been cataloging every timestamp, cross-referencing the security footage with dispatch logs, and backing up everything to 3 separate encrypted servers." Maya sat down beside her twin, watching familiar faces move across the laptop screen in silent video playback. Pike's aggressive posture looked even worse in the morning light, his finger jabbing toward the porch, his hand seizing Maya's wrist, his face twisted with barely controlled rage. "There," Naomi said, pausing the video at the exact moment Pike grabbed Maya. "Look at the timestamp, 7:43 p.m. You never moved from the top step. Your feet stayed planted in exactly the same position from the moment we first showed our badges until he physically grabbed you." Maya studied the footage with professional detachment. The camera angle captured everything perfectly. Pike's approach up the steps, his hand shooting out to grab her wrist, her automatic defensive reaction to pull away. The video made it impossible to claim she had advanced on him aggressively. "He's going to try to control the narrative," Maya said quietly. "Men like Pike always do. They create their own version of events and force everyone around them to support it." Naomi saved another backup copy to a 4th server. "Let him try. Dad's cameras caught everything." At 9:15 that morning, 2 patrol cars pulled up to the curb. Pike emerged from the first vehicle with Shaw and Mercer flanking him. Cole followed in the second cruiser, walking several paces behind the others as they approached the front yard. Maya and Naomi stepped onto the porch, both wearing their FBI credentials visibly clipped to their jackets. Pike stopped at the bottom of the steps, holding an official-looking document. His face showed no trace of the previous night's uncertainty, only cold determination. "Special Agent Carter," he said, addressing Maya with exaggerated formality. "I'm here to serve you with an incident report documenting last evening's encounter." He extended the papers toward her. Maya walked down 3 steps to accept them, keeping her movements deliberate and visible to the security cameras. She read silently for several moments while the officers waited below. Her expression never changed, but Naomi could see her sister's jaw tighten with controlled anger. "Sergeant Pike," Maya said finally, her voice calm and clear, "this report claims I advanced on you aggressively and initiated physical contact. Is that your official statement?" "That's correct," Pike replied without hesitation. "You approached me in a threatening manner, forcing me to take defensive action." Maya looked directly at the nearest camera, then back at Pike. "I want to make sure I understand your position. You're stating officially that I left the porch and moved toward you in an aggressive way?" "Absolutely," Pike said. "You came down those steps with clear hostile intent. Officer Shaw witnessed the entire incident." Shaw nodded reluctantly. "That's what I saw." Mercer remained silent, his face troubled. Cole shifted uncomfortably behind the group. Maya folded the report and slipped it into her jacket pocket. Naomi, would you please show Sergeant Pike the relevant footage from last evening? Naomi pulled out her tablet, already loaded with the time-stamped video. She held the screen toward Pike, pressing play. The footage showed Maya standing motionless at the top of the porch steps. Pike approached up the stairs. His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. Maya pulled back defensively, but never advanced toward him. Pike's confident expression faltered as he watched his own actions contradicted by clear video evidence. Cole stepped forward slightly, his face showing obvious shock. "That's not what the report says," he said quietly. "Officer Cole," Pike snapped, "return to your vehicle." "No, Sergeant," Cole replied, his voice growing stronger. "The report states Agent Carter approached you aggressively. The video shows she never left the top step. She never moved toward you at all." Mercer studied the tablet screen with growing concern. "The footage is pretty clear," he said slowly. Pike's face flushed red with anger. "I don't care what some manipulated video shows. I know what happened." Naomi rewound the footage and played it again. "This is raw security data with embedded timestamps. It uploads automatically to encrypted servers. There's no possibility of manipulation." "Give me that device," Pike demanded, reaching for the tablet. Naomi pulled it back against her chest. "This is private property containing federal evidence." "Mercer, help me seize that tablet," Pike ordered. Mercer shook his head firmly. "Not without a warrant, Sergeant. That's FBI equipment on private property." Pike spun toward Shaw. "Then you do it." Shaw looked between Pike and the tablet, clearly torn between following orders and avoiding a federal obstruction charge. "Sergeant, maybe we should—" "Maybe we should what?" Pike exploded. Cole pulled out his own copy of the incident report, studying it against what he had just watched. "I can't sign this," he announced. "The report doesn't match what actually happened." "You'll sign whatever I tell you to sign," Pike snarled. "No," Cole said firmly. "I witnessed the encounter. Agent Carter never advanced on anyone. She defended herself when you grabbed her without justification." Mercer nodded slowly. "Cole's right. I saw the same thing he did." Pike's control finally snapped completely. He lunged forward, shoving Cole backward across the front yard. Cole stumbled, catching himself before falling. "Your career is over," Pike screamed. "Both of you. I'll make sure you never work in law enforcement again. You're choosing criminals over your own department." Cole straightened up, looking directly at Pike with newfound resolve. "I'm choosing the truth over lies." Maya stepped forward, her voice cutting through Pike's rage with cold authority. "Sergeant," she said, "you just physically assaulted an officer in front of federal agents while attempting to coerce false testimony. And now 2 of your own officers are willing to testify that your official report is fabricated." Pike turned toward her, his face twisted with fury. Maya's expression remained perfectly calm. "2 officers just became witnesses against your version of events." Pike's breathing came in short, angry bursts as he stared up at the twins. The front yard felt charged with tension. Cole and Mercer stood several feet away, their faces showing clear discomfort with what they had just witnessed. Shaw remained close to Pike's shoulder, waiting for orders. "This ends now," Pike declared, his voice low and dangerous. "Shaw, we're going around to the side entrance, emergency authority to secure evidence before it gets destroyed." Maya immediately stepped down 1 step, positioning herself between Pike and the side yard. "There is no emergency. You have no warrant." "I don't need a warrant when evidence is being tampered with," Pike shot back, moving toward the corner of the porch. Shaw followed reluctantly, approaching Maya's position. "Agent Carter, please step aside." "No," Maya said firmly, holding her ground. Shaw reached out and grabbed her forearm, trying to pull her away from the path. "I'm sorry, but you need to move." Maya's response was immediate and precise. She twisted her arm sharply, breaking Shaw's grip while simultaneously trapping his wrist against the porch railing. Shaw found himself bent forward awkwardly, his hand pinned and unable to move without causing himself pain. "Release me," Maya said calmly, applying just enough pressure to keep him controlled. Shaw tried to pull free but quickly realized he was completely immobilized. "Let go!" "When you stop grabbing federal agents," Maya replied evenly. Pike saw his officer trapped and charged toward the porch steps. His face was twisted with rage as he rushed forward with both hands extended. Naomi stepped down smoothly, meeting him at the bottom step. As Pike's momentum carried him toward her, she turned her shoulder and used his own force to redirect him sideways into the front yard. Pike stumbled across the grass, off balance and furious. The entire physical confrontation lasted less than 10 seconds. Maya released Shaw's wrist and stepped back up to the porch. Shaw rubbed his arm, looking stunned. Pike scrambled to his feet, grass stains on his uniform. "You assaulted police officers!" Pike screamed, pointing at both twins. Cole stepped forward, his voice clear and firm. "No, they defended themselves. Shaw grabbed Agent Carter first. You charged at Agent Carter. They used minimal force to protect themselves." Mercer nodded in agreement. "Pike, you initiated both contacts. The agents responded defensively." Pike spun toward his officers, his face red with fury. "You're supposed to support your sergeant." "We're supposed to support the truth," Cole replied without backing down. Shaw looked between Pike and the twins, his expression conflicted. "Sergeant, maybe we should just leave." "We're not leaving until I secure that evidence," Pike snarled. Mercer shook his head. "I'm not participating in an unlawful search. Neither should Shaw." "Then both of you can explain yourselves to the lieutenant," Pike said, pulling out his radio. Within minutes, Lieutenant Keller's patrol car pulled into the driveway again. He stepped out slowly, surveying the scene with obvious displeasure. Pike, Shaw, Cole, and Mercer stood scattered across the front yard. The twins remained on the porch, calm but alert. "What happened here?" Keller demanded. Pike launched into an immediate explanation. "The suspects physically attacked Shaw and me when we attempted to secure evidence." Cole and Mercer refused to provide backup. Cole interrupted. "That's not accurate, Lieutenant. Sergeant Pike ordered an unlawful search. When Agent Carter blocked his path, Shaw grabbed her. She defended herself without striking anyone. Pike then charged at her. Agent Carter's sister redirected him safely away. Both agents showed remarkable restraint. Keller's jaw tightened as he looked between his officers. "So my own men are contradicting each other?" Mercer stepped forward. "Lieutenant, the agents acted professionally. Pike escalated unnecessarily." Shaw remained silent, rubbing his wrist. Keller studied the twins on the porch, his expression cold with calculation. "This has gone far enough. I'm opening an internal complaint against both agents for using federal credentials to intimidate and obstruct local law enforcement." Maya's voice carried across the yard with quiet authority. "Lieutenant, we look forward to defending ourselves through proper channels." Keller's smile was thin and dangerous. "Good, because this just became an institutional matter." By late morning, the Carter property had become an unofficial command post for Keller's investigation. The lieutenant stood beside his sedan in the driveway, dictating notes into his phone while occasionally glancing toward the porch where Maya and Naomi remained positioned. Pike paced the front walkway like a caged animal, his eyes never leaving the twins. "Internal complaint reference number 2847. Keller spoke clearly into his device. "Agents Maya and Naomi Carter willfully obstructed lawful police investigation, used federal credentials to intimidate officers, and physically assaulted Sergeant Pike and Officer Shaw during execution of duties." Maya started to step forward, but Naomi caught her arm gently. "Let him talk," Naomi said quietly. "Every word he says creates evidence." Instead of arguing with Keller's accusations, Naomi pulled out her tablet and connected to the porch security system. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, pulling up the morning's recordings. She began comparing timestamps between the video footage and the incident reports Pike had been filing throughout the morning. "Maya, look at this," Naomi said, holding up the tablet. Pike's report states his body camera malfunctioned at 9:47 a.m., but watch the footage from 9:47. On the screen, Pike could be seen clearly reaching for Maya's arm. The small red recording light on his chest-mounted camera blinked steadily throughout the entire encounter. His camera was working perfectly, Maya observed, studying the video. Naomi scrolled through additional footage. And here, at 10:15, when Shaw grabbed your arm, Pike's report claims equipment failure again, but you can see his camera light blinking the entire time. "Convenient malfunctions," Maya said grimly. Keller finished his phone call and approached the porch steps. "Agents, I need you to surrender any recordings from this property for evidence review." "We'll provide copies through proper legal channels," Maya replied. Pike stopped pacing and moved closer to the porch. "Your little cameras won't save you. I've dealt with troublemakers before." Maya descended 2 steps, holding her tablet where Pike could see the screen. "Sergeant, your report claims your body camera malfunctioned during our physical encounter, but our footage shows it was recording the entire time." Pike's face darkened. "Equipment fails. That happens." "Twice in 30 minutes?" Maya pressed. "During the exact moments you made physical contact?" Pike stepped closer to Maya, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "You think you're smart? You think your fancy badges make you untouchable?" Maya remained perfectly still, her feet planted firmly on the porch step. Pike moved even closer, almost within arm's reach. "Go ahead," Pike taunted, his breath visible in the cool air. "Touch me again. Give me a reason to arrest you right here." Maya did not move. She held eye contact with Pike without flinching or stepping back. The tension stretched between them like a wire ready to snap. From near the patrol cars, Cole cleared his throat. "Sergeant Pike ordered cameras disabled during 3 previous homeowner stops in the past month." The words cut through the standoff like a blade. Pike spun toward Cole, his face twisted with rage. "What did you say?" Cole's voice remained steady despite the obvious threat in Pike's tone. "You told officers to switch off body cameras during the Williams stop, the Henderson incident, and the Martinez encounter. I remember because you said the equipment was interfering with radio communications." Keller immediately stepped toward Cole, his voice sharp with authority. "Officer Cole, you're speaking about confidential operational matters. That constitutes insubordination." Cole stood straighter. "Lieutenant, I'm stating facts about evidence tampering." "You're creating problems where none exist," Keller shot back. "Pike follows proper protocols for equipment maintenance." "Disabling cameras during resident encounters isn't maintenance," Cole replied firmly. Keller's expression hardened with cold fury. "Cole, you're one complaint away from suspension. Think carefully about your next words." The threat hung in the morning air like smoke. Cole glanced between Keller and Pike, understanding perfectly how the chain of command protected certain officers from accountability. Naomi stepped closer to Maya, her voice quiet, but clear enough for everyone to hear. "We don't just have a biased sergeant problem anymore. These false reports appear coordinated from above." Maya nodded grimly, watching Keller's face as he processed Naomi's words. The lieutenant's carefully controlled expression confirmed what the twins had suspected. Pike's behavior was not isolated misconduct, but part of a larger pattern of institutional protection. The patrol cars disappeared around the corner, leaving tire tracks in the gravel and the bitter taste of unfinished business hanging in the afternoon air. Maya and Naomi stood on their porch watching the dust settle, neither speaking until the engine sounds faded completely. "They'll be back," Maya said finally. "With more lies," Naomi agreed, "but we have what we need to stop them." They went inside, closing the front door with a satisfying click. The house felt different now, not just their childhood home, but a fortress of evidence. Maya settled into their father's old leather chair, while Naomi powered up her laptop at the kitchen table. "I want to check the archived files," Naomi said, connecting to the security system's main server. "Dad's original cameras stored recordings for 3 years before I upgraded to cloud backup. If Pike and Keller have been targeting this neighborhood, there might be older evidence." Maya watched her sister's fingers dance across the keyboard. "How far back do the files go?" "Dad installed the first cameras in 2019. I kept everything when I upgraded the system last year." Naomi's eyes narrowed as folders appeared on her screen. "Here we go, sorting by date." The twins worked in comfortable silence. Maya reviewed the written complaints their father had filed with the police department, while Naomi scrolled through hundreds of archived video files. Most showed ordinary neighborhood activity: delivery trucks, joggers, neighbors walking dogs. Then Naomi stopped. "Maya, look at this timestamp. October 15th, 2019, 4 years ago." The video showed their father standing on the same porch steps where Maya and Naomi had confronted Pike yesterday. But he wasn't alone. 2 police officers stood at the bottom of the steps, their uniforms clearly visible despite the late afternoon shadows. Maya leaned closer to the laptop screen. "Can you enhance the image?" Naomi adjusted the video quality. The first officer came into focus, young, thin, with a distinctive scar along his jawline. "That's Pike," Maya breathed. 4 years younger, but definitely Pike. The second officer stepped into clearer view. Broader shoulders, graying hair at the temples, sergeant's stripes visible on his sleeve. "Warren Keller," Naomi said grimly, "before he made lieutenant." Their father's voice carried clearly from the porch speakers. "Officers, I've filed 3 complaints about being stopped outside my own house. This is harassment." Keller's response was sharp and dismissive. "Mr. Carter, filing complaints doesn't give you special treatment. Officers have the right to investigate suspicious activity." "Suspicious activity?" Their father's voice rose with controlled anger. "I've lived here for 22 years. I own this property. What's suspicious about coming home from work?" Pike stepped forward, his hand resting on his radio. "Sir, arguing with police officers won't help your situation." "My situation is being treated like a criminal in front of my own house," their father shot back. Keller moved closer to the porch steps, his voice dropping to a threatening tone. "Mr. Carter, let me be clear. Officers respond to calls from concerned neighbors. If you continue filing complaints about legitimate police work, you'll create bigger problems for yourself." Maya felt her chest tighten. "Dad never told us about this." On the screen, their father remained calm despite the obvious intimidation. "Lieutenant, I'm recording this conversation for my own protection." "Your protection?" Keller laughed coldly. "From what?" "From officers who seem to think I don't belong in my own neighborhood." Pike's voice turned nasty. "Maybe you should consider moving somewhere more suitable." The silence that followed was heavy with menace. Their father stood straighter, meeting both officers' stares without backing down. "This is my home," he said quietly. "I'm not moving anywhere." Keller adjusted his hat, signaling the end of the encounter. "Just remember what I told you, Carter. Complaints work both ways." The officers walked back to their patrol car, leaving their father alone on the porch. The video showed him watching until they drove away, then checking each camera angle methodically. Naomi paused the recording. He installed these cameras because he was afraid of them. Maya stared at the frozen image of her father on the porch, the same spot where she'd stood defiantly yesterday. He knew they'd come back. "Look at this," Naomi said, pulling up another folder. Dad kept written records, too. The complaint filed the next day was detailed and precise. Their father had documented every encounter, including the names of responding officers, Sergeant Warren Keller and Officer Randall Pike. "They've been harassing black homeowners for years," Maya said, her voice tight with anger. and protecting each other the entire time. Naomi scrolled through additional files. Here's another incident from 6 months later. Same officers, different house 3 blocks away. Maya stood up, walking to the open front door. She stared out at the porch where her father had stood his ground, against the same men who'd tried to intimidate her yesterday. "The cameras weren't for vandalism," she said quietly. "No," Naomi agreed. "Dad installed them because he expected retaliation." Maya gripped the doorframe, understanding flooding through her. The porch that Pike had tried to control yesterday had been documenting his pattern of harassment for years. Their father had been building a case long before Maya and Naomi ever returned home. "He was protecting us," Maya whispered, "even after he was gone." Maya's phone buzzed with an incoming call just as she and Naomi were pulling up the next archived video. The caller ID showed an unknown local number. "Special Agent Carter," Maya answered. "This is Lieutenant Keller. I'm outside your property with a lawful inspection order. Please come to your front door." Maya looked at Naomi, who was already closing the laptop. Through the window, they could see the same 4 officers from yesterday standing at the bottom of their porch steps. Keller held a folded document in his hand. "We're coming," Maya said, ending the call. The twins walked to the front door together. Keller stood prominently at the center of the group, his lieutenant's uniform crisp and authoritative. Pike flanked him on the right, his expression eager and vindictive. Shaw and Mercer took positions on either side, while Cole remained slightly behind the others. "Agent Carter," Keller said formally, extending the document. "This is a narrowly written inspection order for local recording equipment related to yesterday's incident." Maya accepted the papers and read carefully. The order was specific. It authorized examination of security recording devices located within the residence, limited to footage from the previous 48 hours. No removal of equipment was permitted without separate authorization. "This order allows inspection only," Maya said clearly. "No seizure, no removal, no expansion beyond the stated scope." "Understood," Keller replied smoothly. "We simply need to verify what recordings exist." Naomi stepped beside her sister. "The inspection will be conducted on the porch and just inside the front doorway. The order doesn't authorize a general search of the house." Pike shifted impatiently. "Lieutenant, we need access to wherever the equipment is located." "The equipment can be brought to you," Maya said firmly, "or you can inspect it from the authorized area." Keller nodded as if this was reasonable. "That's acceptable. Please bring the recording system where we can examine it." The twins exchanged glances. They both understood that Keller was being unusually cooperative, which made him more dangerous than Pike's obvious aggression. Maya stepped back from the doorway. "Officers will remain on the porch. Lieutenant Keller may step inside the front entrance only." Naomi moved toward the security cabinet mounted near the living room entrance. The local recording unit was clearly visible, a black metal box with several LED indicators and connection cables. "Here's the primary recorder," Naomi announced. "It stores 48 hours of footage before automatic deletion." Keller moved just inside the doorway, careful to stay within the permitted area. He examined the device from several feet away, nodding as if satisfied. "And this contains the recordings from yesterday's encounter?" he asked. "Among other recent footage," Naomi confirmed. Pike grew restless on the porch. "Lieutenant, how long does this take? It's just a recording box." "Patience, Sergeant," Keller said calmly. But Maya caught something in his tone, a signal she couldn't quite interpret. That's when Pike moved. Without warning, he lunged past Keller and charged toward the security cabinet, his hands reaching for the recording unit. "Hey!" Naomi stepped directly into his path. "You're exceeding the search scope." Pike tried to push past her, but Naomi planted her feet and blocked his advance. "Lieutenant, your sergeant is violating the inspection order." Shaw burst through the doorway behind Pike. "Move aside, lady." He grabbed Naomi from behind, wrapping his arms around her shoulders to pull her away from the cabinet. Maya reacted instantly. She stepped forward and applied a controlled arm lock, gripping Shaw's elbow and wrist in a smooth motion that forced him to release Naomi immediately. "Officer Shaw, remove your hands," Maya commanded, maintaining the lock without causing injury. Shaw tried to twist away, but Maya's training kept him controlled. "Let go of me! When you stop grabbing my sister!" Mercer suddenly moved between Pike and the security cabinet, blocking Pike's path. "Sergeant, the order doesn't authorize this." Cole stepped into the doorway, his voice loud and clear. "Lieutenant, this search is exceeding its authorized scope. The inspection order doesn't permit seizure." Pike ignored all of them, reaching around Mercer toward the recording unit. "We need that evidence." In the struggle, Pike's elbow struck the security cabinet. The local recorder tilted on its mounting shelf, balanced precariously for one moment, then crashed to the floor. The black metal housing split open on impact. Circuit boards scattered across the hardwood. LED lights flickered once and went dark. Silence filled the front hallway. Keller smiled slowly, as if everything had gone exactly according to plan. "Well," he said with satisfaction, "that's unfortunate. Looks like your recording system has been damaged." Pike stepped back from the broken components, breathing hard but grinning. Shaw rubbed his arm where Maya had controlled him, glaring at both twins. Maya released Shaw completely and moved to stand beside Naomi, who was calmly examining the scattered pieces of the recorder. 48 hours of local footage, Keller continued, his voice carrying false regret. All destroyed in the struggle. Cole looked stricken. "Lieutenant, that wasn't supposed to happen." "Accidents occur during lawful inspections, Officer Cole," Keller replied coldly. Naomi knelt beside the broken recorder, gathering a few circuit boards as if checking for salvageable components. She looked up at Maya with an expression that appeared defeated. "Maya," she said quietly, her voice carrying to her sister, but not to the officers. The originals were uploaded off-site before anyone arrived. Maya kept her face carefully neutral, showing no reaction to Naomi's words. But inside, she felt a surge of fierce satisfaction. Keller thought he had just destroyed their evidence. He had no idea what was coming. "Nobody move!" Keller barked, his voice cutting through the tension in the front hallway. "Everyone stay exactly where you are." The officers froze in position. Pike stood near the broken security cabinet, his chest still rising and falling from the struggle. Shaw remained by the doorway, rubbing his arm. Mercer held his ground between Pike and the scattered recorder pieces. Cole stayed in the entrance, his body camera still recording everything. Maya and Naomi stood side by side, surveying the damage to their equipment with carefully controlled expressions. Keller pointed at the broken components scattered across the hardwood floor. "What we have here is clear destruction of evidence during a lawful inspection." Pike immediately seized the opportunity. "That woman smashed the recorder." He jabbed his finger toward Naomi. "She knocked it down when I tried to examine it properly." Naomi's voice remained steady. "I was blocking your unauthorized access to equipment outside the inspection scope." "She destroyed evidence to prevent us from reviewing those recordings," Pike continued, his confidence building. "She deliberately damaged the system." Keller nodded as if Pike's version made perfect sense. Agent Carter interfered with the inspection and caused the destruction of potential evidence. But Cole stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly through the doorway. "That's not what happened, Lieutenant." Every eye turned toward the young officer. Pike's expression darkened with warning. "Officer Cole," Keller said slowly, "describe exactly what you observed." Cole straightened his shoulders. Sergeant Pike charged past the permitted inspection area and reached for the recording unit. When Officer Mercer blocked him, Pike's elbow struck the cabinet and knocked the recorder to the floor. Pike's face flushed red. "Cole, you're mistaken about—" "I'm not mistaken," Cole interrupted firmly. "I saw Pike knock the recorder down while attempting unauthorized seizure." Mercer nodded beside him. Officer Cole is correct. Sergeant Pike exceeded the inspection scope and caused the damage. Shaw looked between Pike and the other officers, his earlier confidence evaporating. The consequences of supporting a false report were becoming real. He opened his mouth, then closed it without speaking. Maya watched the unity among the officers crumble in real time. Pike's authority was dissolving as his subordinates refused to back his version of events. Keller's jaw tightened. Officers Cole and Mercer, you're dismissed from this scene immediately. Lieutenant, we're providing accurate witness statements, Mercer replied calmly. You're interfering with the investigation, Keller snapped. Return to patrol duties. Now. Cole hesitated, then looked directly at the twins. Maya realized he was positioning himself where the porch security microphones would capture his words clearly. For the record, Cole said in a loud, clear voice, Sergeant Pike previously ordered officers to disable body cameras during similar stops involving homeowners. Those orders were given during at least 3 encounters I witnessed personally. The statement hit like a thunderbolt. Shaw's eyes widened in panic. Pike went completely still, his face draining of color. "Officer Cole!" Keller roared. "You're terminated from this scene." But the damage was done. Cole had just corroborated everything the twins suspected about Pike's pattern of misconduct, and he had done it on a recording system Pike didn't know still existed. Cole turned and walked away from the porch, followed by Mercer. Their footsteps echoed across the quiet street, where neighbors had begun gathering to watch the confrontation unfold. Shaw finally found his voice, but it came out shaky. "Lieutenant, The recorder fell during the struggle. I'm not sure exactly how." Pike stared at Shaw with fury and disbelief. His most loyal officer was abandoning him when support mattered most. Keller surveyed the scene. Broken recorder components, scattered officers, and 2 federal agents who had just heard their strongest piece of live corroboration. His carefully planned evidence destruction was turning into a disaster. "Agent Carter," Keller said to Maya, his voice tight with controlled anger, "you and your sister will be investigated for evidence manipulation and obstruction." Maya met his gaze without flinching. "We look forward to that investigation, Lieutenant." 20 minutes later, police cars began pulling away from the Carter property. Pike had been ordered to report for an emergency meeting with department leadership. Shaw followed in a separate vehicle, his face pale with worry. The neighbors across the street started applauding, believing they had just witnessed the end of the confrontation. But Maya and Naomi remained on their porch, watching the patrol cars disappear around the corner. They both understood that Keller's retreat was tactical, not final. The real battle was just beginning. The porch light cast long shadows across the Carter property as evening settled over the neighborhood. Maya sat at the kitchen table, organizing printed copies of police reports, while Naomi worked at her laptop, cross-referencing timestamps from the damaged recording system. The house felt different now, quieter. The constant tension of officers gathering outside had lifted, replaced by the methodical work of building an airtight case. "Cole's statement changes everything," Maya said, reviewing her handwritten notes. 3 previous encounters with disabled body cameras. That establishes Pike's pattern. Naomi nodded without looking up from her screen. Mercer backing him up makes it impossible for Keller to claim Cole was mistaken or lying. Through the front window, Maya watched a few neighbors still lingering across the street, their conversations animated as they discussed the afternoon's confrontation. The applause when Pike's patrol car had driven away felt like victory. But Maya knew better than to trust easy wins. The sound of a car door slamming made both twins look toward the window. A single police vehicle sat at the curb, its headlights cutting through the growing darkness. Lieutenant Keller walked alone across the front yard. His uniform was crisp, his posture confident. Nothing in his bearing suggested a man whose carefully orchestrated plan had just collapsed in spectacular fashion. Maya and Naomi exchanged glances, then stepped onto the porch together. Keller stopped at the bottom of the steps, looking up at them with an expression that was almost satisfied. "Ladies, I have an update on today's events." "We're listening," Maya replied evenly. "After careful review of the incident involving your damaged recording equipment, Sergeant Pike has been fully reinstated to active duty," Keller announced. "The initial suspension was premature, based on incomplete information." The words hit like physical blows. Naomi felt her stomach drop, but forced her expression to remain neutral. Keller continued with obvious satisfaction. "Furthermore, both of you are now under formal investigation for evidence manipulation and obstruction of a lawful police inspection. Your conduct today will be referred to FBI Internal Affairs for review." Maya's hands clenched into fists, but her voice stayed controlled. "On what grounds?" "The destruction of the recording device makes those stored recordings unreliable as evidence," Keller explained smoothly. "You cannot verify that the audio files weren't altered before or after the device was damaged. Any testimony based on manipulated recordings would constitute federal misconduct." He paused, studying their faces for signs of panic or defeat. Instead, Naomi asked a single question. "Lieutenant, are you formally asserting that the destroyed device held the only original recordings?" "Absolutely," Keller replied without hesitation. "That damaged recorder was your only source for the alleged audio evidence. Without intact hardware verification, those files are worthless." Maya realized immediately what Naomi was doing. The porch microphone was still active, capturing every word Keller spoke. He was committing himself to factual claims that could be proven false. "And you're stating for the record that our evidence is unreliable because the original recordings were destroyed when the device was damaged?" Naomi pressed. "That's exactly what I'm stating," Keller said firmly. "You have no verifiable originals, no intact chain of custody, no admissible evidence." His confidence was absolute. He believed he had neutralized their strongest weapon by destroying the local storage device. "Your FBI careers are finished," Keller added with cold satisfaction. "Pike returns to duty tomorrow morning. This investigation is closed." He turned and walked back toward his patrol car, his stride confident and unhurried. Maya watched his taillights disappear around the corner before speaking. He just committed himself to a completely false statement. Naomi was already moving toward her laptop. Multiple false statements, all recorded. She opened the encrypted cloud archive with practiced keystrokes. The screen filled with pristine audio files, each marked with automatic upload timestamps from throughout the week. "Original recordings from Monday through today," Naomi said quietly. "Complete upload logs. Metadata showing continuous cloud storage before the recorder was ever touched." Maya leaned over her sister's shoulder, studying the undamaged evidence that proved every claim Keller had just made was a lie. The files were perfect, untouched, verifiable, and Keller had just denied they existed. The kitchen table had become a war room. Naomi's laptop displayed multiple windows, cloud archive files, police report timestamps, body camera logs, and complaint histories. Maya spread printed documents across the surface, creating a physical timeline that matched the digital evidence. "Start with Monday afternoon," Maya said, placing Pike's initial incident report beside Naomi's screen. "His version claims we were argumentative and evasive when asked for identification." Naomi pulled up the corresponding audio file. Pike's actual words echoed through the kitchen speakers. "I don't care what you say. You don't look like you belong here." "No request for identification," Maya noted, marking the discrepancy with a red pen. "He demanded we come down from the porch before asking for anything." They worked methodically, comparing each official report against the recorded reality. Pike's documentation painted a picture of hostile suspects who refused cooperation and threatened officers. The audio revealed calm federal agents repeatedly offering verification, while Pike escalated without justification. Tuesday's report is even worse, Naomi said, scrolling to another file. He claims I aggressively approached Shaw during the recorder incident. Maya pulled up the corresponding cloud recording. Naomi's voice was steady and professional. "Officer, please step back from our property. You don't have a warrant to seize that equipment." Shaw grabbed for the recorder, Maya observed. "You never moved toward him at all." The pattern became undeniable as they progressed through each encounter. Pike consistently reported events that contradicted the recorded evidence. Keller's reports supported Pike's false narratives while adding his own fabrications about the twins' behavior and credentials. "Look at this," Naomi said, opening their father's decades-old complaint file. Same address, same accusations about suspicious residents who didn't belong in the neighborhood. Maya read over her shoulder. Pike was the responding officer. He wrote that Dad was verbally combative and refused lawful orders. Dad was 73 years old and had a heart condition, Naomi said quietly. He was watering his front garden when they surrounded him. They added the historical complaint to their timeline, establishing Pike's long-term pattern of targeting black homeowners at the same property. The documentation revealed systematic harassment that spanned decades, protected by supervisors who altered reports and buried complaints. Maya reached for her secure phone. Time to make some calls. She contacted Deputy Director Richardson, her direct supervisor in the FBI's Civil Rights Division. The conversation was brief and professional. Richardson listened without interruption as Maya outlined the evidence they had compiled. "We need federal observers on site," Maya concluded. "Pike and Keller are planning another confrontation tomorrow morning, and we expect them to double down on their false allegations." Richardson agreed immediately. The Civil Rights Division had been building similar cases in 3 other jurisdictions, and the Carter evidence provided perfect documentation of the patterns they were investigating. While Maya handled federal coordination, Naomi reached out to Cole and Mercer separately. Both officers confirmed they would provide honest testimony if formally questioned. Cole sounded relieved to finally speak truthfully about what he had witnessed. Mercer was more cautious, but committed to accuracy over loyalty to Pike. Shaw remained the wild card. When Naomi called him, his responses were evasive and uncertain. He clearly understood that the department's protection might not extend to subordinate officers, but he wasn't ready to break ranks completely. 2 out of 3 is enough, Maya said, after Naomi reported the conversations. Cole and Mercer together established Pike's pattern of disabling cameras and falsifying reports. They deliberately avoided contacting Pike or Keller. The twins wanted their opponents to arrive tomorrow morning, believing they held all the advantages. Federal investigation pending, local evidence destroyed, witnesses silenced. The house phone rang just before midnight. Naomi answered on the second ring. "This is Lieutenant Keller. I'm calling to inform you that I will be at your residence tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with formal paperwork regarding evidence tampering charges. Both of you are required to be present." Naomi glanced at Maya, who nodded once. "We'll be here, Lieutenant," Naomi replied calmly. Keller hung up without another word. Maya smiled grimly as Naomi set down the phone. "He's walking straight into it." The morning sun cast long shadows across the Carter property as Lieutenant Keller's patrol car pulled up to the curb. Pike sat in the passenger seat, his face set in hard lines. Shaw, Cole, and Mercer followed in a second vehicle, parking directly behind Keller's cruiser. Maya watched from the living room window as the 5 officers approached the front walkway. Each man carried himself differently. Pike with aggressive confidence, Keller with calculated authority, Shaw with nervous energy, Cole with visible reluctance, and Mercer with careful observation. "They're here," Maya called softly. Naomi emerged from the kitchen carrying a tablet and a small portable monitor. She had spent the early morning hours preparing the presentation that would end Pike and Keller's careers. The cloud recordings were queued and ready, timestamps verified, audio levels adjusted for maximum clarity. The twins stepped onto the front porch together, positioning themselves at the top of the same steps where Pike had first ordered them down. Maya stood with her hands relaxed at her sides, every muscle ready for action. Naomi held the tablet casually, as if it contained nothing more threatening than family photos. The 5 officers arranged themselves at the bottom of the porch steps in a familiar formation. Pike moved slightly forward, still believing he controlled this confrontation. Keller remained behind him, briefcase in hand, radiating the confidence of someone who thought he had already won. Shaw positioned himself to Pike's left, ready to support whatever his sergeant demanded. Cole stayed back, his body language showing clear discomfort with the situation. Mercer flanked the group's right side, his experienced eyes already scanning for problems. Maya and Naomi Carter, Keller announced formally, opening his briefcase with deliberate ceremony. You are being served notice of federal charges related to evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, and abuse of federal credentials. He pulled out a manila folder, holding it where the morning sun illuminated the official letterhead. Pike smiled with satisfaction, believing this moment would vindicate his handling of the original confrontation. These charges stem from your destruction and manipulation of recorded evidence, Keller continued, his voice carrying across the quiet neighborhood. The original footage from your security system has been determined to contain fabricated content designed to discredit legitimate police actions. Maya remained perfectly still, letting Keller speak without interruption. She had learned long ago that arrogant suspects always talked too much when they believed they were winning. Keller stepped closer to the porch steps, raising his voice so nearby residents could hear every word. The only authentic recording equipment was the device located inside your residence, which you deliberately destroyed to hide evidence of your aggressive behavior toward responding officers. Shaw nodded enthusiastically, supporting his lieutenant's accusations. Pike crossed his arms, savoring what he believed was complete victory over the 2 women who had dared challenge his authority. Naomi tilted her head slightly, speaking with innocent curiosity. Lieutenant Keller, just to be absolutely clear, you're confirming that the recorder found inside our house contained the only original footage of our encounters? Keller's smile broadened. He believed Naomi was desperately searching for some technical loophole that might save them. That is correct. That device held the sole authentic record of events, and you destroyed it to conceal your misconduct. And you're stating officially that no other original recordings exist? Naomi pressed gently. Pike laughed harshly. Stop fishing for excuses. You got caught lying, and now you're going to pay for it. Keller raised his hand to silence Pike, but his expression remained supremely confident. Agent Carter, there are no other original recordings. Your privately owned system has been thoroughly examined by our technical experts. The destroyed equipment contained the only legitimate documentation. Naomi nodded thoughtfully, then activated the portable monitor she had been holding. The portable monitor came alive with crystal-clear footage. Naomi had cued the recording to begin at the exact moment Pike first approached the porch 3 days earlier. Keller's confident expression faltered as his own voice emerged from the speakers. These charges stem from your destruction and manipulation of recorded evidence. Then the screen showed Pike's face as he realized the house had been recording everything. The timestamp in the corner matched perfectly with the dispatch logs federal investigators had already obtained. What you're looking at, Naomi said calmly, are the original cloud recordings that uploaded automatically every 30 seconds throughout our encounters. The device you destroyed contained only backup copies. Shaw's face went pale. He had personally witnessed Pike smashing the recorder, believing they were eliminating the twins' evidence. Instead, they had been performing destruction of property, while the real recordings remained safely stored on federal servers. Pike stepped forward aggressively. "You're lying. That footage was altered." "Actually," a new voice interrupted from behind the officers, "we've already verified its authenticity." Federal Agent Rebecca Torres approached from the street, followed by 3 other investigators. The officers spun around, suddenly realizing they were surrounded on the Carter property. Torres displayed her credentials to Keller. "Lieutenant, we need to discuss your official statements regarding evidence tampering and the destruction of recordings." Keller's briefcase trembled slightly in his hands. "I stand by my assessment of the technical evidence." "Then you're confirming you knowingly filed false federal charges?" Torres asked. "Because our digital forensics team verified these recordings 20 minutes ago." Naomi advanced the footage to show Keller's arrival on the first day. His voice rang clearly through the monitor speakers. "The property will remain a temporary investigative scene." Then came Pike's order to Shaw. "Get that recording device. I don't care what you have to do." Shaw looked desperately between Pike and the federal investigators. His loyalty to his sergeant crumbled under the weight of potential federal prosecution. "Sergeant Pike ordered me to seize any recording equipment," Shaw admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "He said the homeowners didn't have a right to document police activities on their own property." Cole stepped forward, his decision finally made. "Pike ordered all of us to disable our body cameras during homeowner stops. When residents complained, Lieutenant Keller told us to rewrite our reports to make the encounters seem justified." Mercer nodded grimly. "I can confirm both statements. Pike specifically said the cameras made officers look bad, and Keller promised the department would protect us if residents filed complaints." Torres signaled to her team. 2 investigators moved toward Keller while another positioned himself behind Pike. But Naomi wasn't finished. She advanced the footage again, this time showing older recordings from the same security system. The timestamp showed a date from 8 years earlier. A younger Pike and Keller stood in the exact same positions at the bottom of the Carter porch steps. Between them stood an older black man, James Carter, Maya and Naomi's father. "You people need to understand," Pike's voice carried clearly from the speakers, "that we know who belongs in this neighborhood and who doesn't." Their father's voice responded with dignity. "Officer, I've lived in this house for 15 years. Keller's younger voice was equally clear. "Living somewhere and belonging somewhere are 2 different things. We'll be watching this property." The current Keller stared at the screen in horror. The recording proved their pattern of harassment stretched back nearly a decade, establishing conspiracy charges that could destroy both their careers and land them in federal prison. Pike made one final desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "That recording is fabricated. No court will accept manipulated evidence." Torres pulled out handcuffs. "Lieutenant Warren Keller, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, conspiracy to violate civil rights, and filing false federal documents." As the handcuffs clicked around Keller's wrists, another investigator approached Pike. "Sergeant Randall Pike, you're being detained pending formal charges." Pike's badge was removed in the Carter front yard, the same location where he had first tried to force 2 federal agents off their own porch. Shaw, Cole, and Mercer were separated and escorted to different vehicles for individual questioning. The neighborhood, which had gathered to watch the morning confrontation, erupted in applause as Pike and Keller were placed in federal custody. By late afternoon, department officials arrived with formal papers clearing both Carter twins of all accusations. The previous homeowner complaints were officially reopened, and the city agreed to independent federal oversight of the precinct's stop-and-search practices. As the sun began setting, construction workers finished replacing the damaged porch rail and mounting a small brass plaque beside the front door. Maya ran her fingers over the engraved words, Home means you don't have to prove you belong. The twins stood together on their restored porch, watching as a patrol car passed slowly down their street. This time, nobody stopped. Maya and Naomi exchanged the same silent glance they had shared before pulling their FBI badges 3 days earlier. Then they stepped inside their own house and closed the door.